Welcome to the very first episode of the Nobody is Listening podcast. My name is Jason Binnicky-Critchlow, and I will be your host. Since this is the first episode, I figure I should give you a little background on what I hope this podcast to be and where I see it going, and why I think you should share it with all your friends, neighbors, coworkers, etc., etc., etc. Please rate, subscribe, and review. It'll definitely be on iTunes. It will be on the Podbean podcast app. I'll post it on my Twitter, which is JASONBANICKI. Feel free to follow me. Get the newest episodes as soon as they come out. If at some point I'll build a Facebook page for this, that'll take a little bit of time, just because I want to do this step by step by step. Get a few episodes together, get it out. Get enough to get it on Spotify and things like that, and build the audience. And then I'll be able to, then I'll add, more means of communication. But for right now, I think Twitter will be good enough. But anyways, this isn't my first foray into podcasting. But this one's going to be a little different than the others. First off, you can tell by the name, don't worry, nobody's listening. I'm just going to do this for me, and if anybody enjoys it, great. If nobody listens, who cares? This is my way to talk about whatever I want and put it out there for whoever wants to listen, and whoever doesn't. If nobody cares, nobody cares. It's no sweat off my back, but it's something I enjoy doing, and something that, from time to time, maybe we'll have guests, usually be my friends if it is anybody. But for now, we're going to start with the first few episodes for sure. For being solo episodes, my goal is always to record one every Monday night, have it ready for release on Tuesday. And then what am I going to talk about? Pretty much whatever I feel like. I don't want to be limited by a genre. I have to pick one for podcast purposes, so I put it under sports and entertainment. I didn't really know what else to do. I know I will talk sports at points. I know I will talk about politics at points. I know I will talk news, and I will talk pop culture, although it may not be current pop culture. So those are kind of the four main areas I want to talk about. I think that covers like 98% of life, if not, most of it by the time you give the catch-all of news. So like I said, I don't want to be confined. I want this to be my thing. I want to be able to do it my way. So this first episode, I'm going to talk about, for sure, absolutely about the first season of The OC. It's one of my favorite TV shows of that era, of that genre, of that teenie drama era, and kind of why I'm going to pick the first season is, I'm kind of rewatching again. And as I was rewatching it, because I just subscribed to Hulu, I got rid of Netflix. Netflix going up to $15 a month. I was like, get out of here. I can get Hulu for the year for like $5.99, watch a couple commercials, and be good to go. So I was like, great, this works for me. And so in that, there's some new old TV shows I haven't watched in a while. Some I wanted to catch up on, and The OC was one I haven't watched in a while. I was like, heck, this was good. I'll watch this for a little bit. And then I caught myself watching it and watching it and watching it. And I'm like, there's a few really important things in this show that really separate it from kind of the other teeny dramas that came before it, and that kind of set the trend for things that the other teen dramas had to follow afterwards. So obviously, if I'm going to talk about ones that came before, you're talking Beverly Hills 90210 is kind of the most preeminent one. And that focused pretty much exclusively on the kids, with a little bit of difference being that there was a little bit of parent stuff that went on in there, but it was never the focus of the show. It never took up, a lot of the show. And anything that was going on with the parents in the show always related back to how it impacted the kids. So the focus was always on the teenagers and their lives. The OC, on the other hand, and I'm going to kind of go through each episode of the first season just to prove how hard in the paint this first show went. Like, it went in his prime, real young probably Orlando Magic Shaquille O'Neal hard in the paint. Like, that's how hard the first season went. It had so many storylines, so many different characters, so many twists, so many turns, so much going on that like it almost crammed 2 seasons worth of storylines into one, and that's probably why the show died off sooner, why the ratings faded, because you can't start that hard and then keep building from that like most other shows do. So it kind of had this problem of doing so much in season 1 that it didn't leave a lot of room to grow going forward. And it really kind of affected the trajectory of the show. I mean, it had a good season 2. I'm halfway into that right about now. So hopefully in a future episode, I'll have that. And then a review of season 3 and a review of season 4, kind of through a 20 years later perspective almost. I think the show came out somewhere around 2002, 2003. August 5th, 2003 was the first episode air date. I happen to have the episode list pulled up on Wikipedia for me real quick, just so as I break off into the episode by episode breakdown, I have a list to jog my memory a little bit. But then, like I said, the OC really focused in, and again, it'll be covered in my almost episode by episode review as I go through here. And I'm not going to give like a 1-star or a 1 ice cream truck or 5 ice cream truck review. Shout outs to the Full Charge Power Hour and their movie reviewer, quote unquote, Eric Allen Wendell. But I'm not going to use that kind of system. By the way, if you're ever looking for a really funny podcast, some really kind of sarcastic takes and a really interesting setup, check out the Full Charge Power Hour, hosted by Matt, the Full Charge, Fulcheron, a.k.a. your baby daddy, a.k.a. the concierge. But back to what I was talking about. So don't expect like that kind of thing. I'm just going to kind of give you a quick synopsis of what happened in the episode, kind of where it's progressed us in the storyline, and kind of just throw this all out there for you. And then hopefully it'll make you want to either go back and rewatch it and realize, damn, that show did really go hard in the paint. I didn't realize it went that hard that fast. Or get you to watch it for the first time, because I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who never watched it. There aren't many people who get into that teeny drama stuff. Never really sure how I got into it, but I kind of watched 3, I guess. So I can't really say I got into it. And there's 3 of them I watched. Watched 90210 because I was basically that age as that show came out. OC because it was just a little after I was, in my early 20s. And then somehow I got caught up in Gossip Girl. I don't know if it was just the right combination of actors and actresses or what drew me to that one. And that's going to be the third one I go to because, like, if you want to see how the genre of teeny drama changed, go watch Gossip Girl. You'll see how it basically takes a ton of the elements from the OC, where you have, the poor outsider come, in this world of affluence where they don't really fit in. Focuses really on the parents. There's a lot of storylines going on in a relatively short period of time. So it's really hard for me to say, look at anything and say, obviously the OC changed the game for TV dramas, even if it didn't last all that long. I mean, again, it was only 4 seasons, so it's not like it's one of those longest running TV shows in the history or anything like that. But, for those of you who haven't watched it, obviously the kind of the main crux of the show focuses on Ryan Atwood, who is this kid from Chino, California. Grows up in a very poor family, alcoholic mother, father's in prison. Brother, he's out one night stealing a car with his brother. This is the very first episode, by the way. And brother gets wrecked, basically steals it right in front of a cop because the cop's right up the road, one of those fake TV things where, oh my God, how was the cop just happened to be right there? Any of us who've ever needed a cop in real life know it's like 99.9999% of the time. There's never a cop there when you need them. They're definitely not there for a stolen car. But anyways, cop apparently sees him break the window, hears him break the window, chases him right down, catches him. He's in the passenger seat. His brother was driving, but he still gets taken to juvie hall. And then Sandy Cohen, this public defender who's married to a wealthy real estate developer, is his public defender. And helps get him, released on bond, goes to take him home. Mom kicks him out of the house. But before he let him out of the car. Sandy gives Ryan his business card just in case. So Ryan gives him a call. He's like, hey, my mom kicked me out. I don't have nowhere to go. So he brings him over to their house for the weekend just till he can get him into, child services, where he meets Seth Cohen, who will be a sidekick throughout the series, basically. Although, as we go through, I'll paint after all 4 seasons why I think the Seth Cohen character was should have been much more of the focus. But at least in the early parts, he's clearly the sidekick, and it was written as if he was the sidekick in this story. So now he's, staying the weekend in this pool house at this rich family's house. Long story short, after the weekend, Ryan's either threatening to run away, or he just doesn't want to go to family services. So Sandy then tries to take him back to his mom's house. Well, lo and behold, his mom has packed up and moved out and left no forwarding address over the weekend. That's right. They weren't threatening to take him to family services. They were going to let him stay for the weekend. They were going to take him back home after his mom had some time to cool off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he goes to take him back. Mom moves. You're gonna find me doing a lot of that where I'm like, oh wait, I forgot. Oh yeah, et cetera. So it's just one of those things I'm going to do. It's always going to be something I do. But before now I got to back up a little bit because there's going to be nothing linear about this. You're going to find my brain is very scattered, and I work in a very, very scattered method of storytelling. This is why I could never be a scriptwriter, because it'd be like page 36 should be page 2. Like it's amazing to me that I was ever able to write like high quality college grade papers, put together term papers and thesis papers, etc. All these things that somehow my scattered brain is able to do. But when I'm thinking, not writing, it's a mess. So while he's staying with the Cohens, before he's allowed into the house, Sandy's got to convince Kirsten to let Ryan stay for the weekend, just for the weekend again, mind you, because his mom will cool off, then let him move back in. He's down at the end of the driveway, smoking a cigarette, and the overly attractive for high school Misha Barton, or in this case Marissa Cooper, comes down and he meets her while she's waiting to be picked up by her boyfriend. And then they develop a quick friendship throughout that first season. I'm kind of going to leave that pin in that relationship for a minute as I keep kind of pushing through, because I don't want to get bogged down in too many details too early. I want to focus on overlying story and not like the minutia of relationship development and character development through the story, because I'll tie it all together again kind of as the season progresses and then at the end of the season. So in the meantime, they decide to let Ryan stay the weekend, except that, they've got one of these wonderful Orange County high events to go to. So they go some sort of charity fashion show or something of that ilk, and he goes and helps set up. And he's talking with Marissa, the neighbor, while her boyfriend gets jealous. Causes a little scene, but nothing big there. But anyways, then they do the charity event. The Summer Roberts, who we're introduced to, gets invited or sees Ryan and thinks he's attractive, so he invites them to come out to Holly's beach house after the fundraiser, for all their hard work. So Ryan and Seth go out there. Well, needless to say, Ryan is from Chino. Seth is just the quintessential nerdy outsider high school kid. He's, plays down to the stereotype of video games and comic books. They didn't stretch themselves hard to write that character with emo music, et cetera, et cetera. So they get into a fight with Luke and the water polo team, which will kind of be a reemerging theme for a little bit, and then very quickly disappears. So, it was kind of funny how many things like that would pop up and then just completely, disappear off the face of the map. But we kind of get to the end of the first episode, and, so Ryan still has no place to go. They kind of leave it in the air. And of course, what happens is, Kirsten wants him to go with family services since his mom has now completely bailed. And we go to episode 2, where his plan is to, instead of go to family services, raise some money, get a bus ticket, go to Arizona to meet up with one of his mom's ex-boyfriends and go work construction. Mind you now, the kid's supposed to be 16. So we're supposed to buy that a 16-year-old's putting all this together, wants to find a job. But in the morning now, the very next morning, he's supposed to go to family services with Sandy and get turned over. Well, Marissa's already kind of growing attached to Ryan, but has a boyfriend. Seth obviously doesn't want his only friend in Newport, California to leave. So they put him in one of Kirsten's model homes. Again, like I said, she's a wealthy real estate developer, so she builds model homes to sell her McMansions. Well, then, Marissa's supposed to go to a party, and there's a lot of back and forth with Marissa and Seth and Ryan. Police are obviously looking for Ryan because he's now a runaway, and nobody knows where he's at. Well, they keep bringing him food, et cetera, et cetera. In the meantime, suddenly now construction's getting ready to kick right back up on the model home. Lo and behold, but somehow nobody noticed was Ryan living in an upstairs when they're in the downstairs. But this is kind of the first hint we get also of Jimmy Cooper, Marissa Cooper's dad's financial problems, because she has to have a meeting with Kirsten there about borrowing it. This money will become an important part in this show. But again, this is kind of this adult, more focused on the adults, because we get this whole scene about Jimmy Cooper's financial problems and his pseudo relationship with Kirsten Cohen. It dates back years. They went to prom together. But not going to get buried into that either. But anyways, again, they're there. They don't notice. Marissa goes to this party, then leaves very early. Luke being suspicious because she's been spending a lot of time away from him, and he knows this new kid who she's been spending some time with. So she follows her. Ryan basically tells her to get out, go away. I'm leaving in the morning for Arizona. Don't bother me. Well, then Luke and 2 of his water polo buddies come in. They beat the crap out of Ryan, start the model house on fire. And the 2 water polo guys were just going to leave him there to die, as if that would have been a smart solution. But, high schoolers are dumb, and TV show high schoolers are even dumber. Luke helps him out, and then, Luke and Ryan both get arrested. And that kind of is the genesis of this second season, the second episode. In the third episode, we get, Sandy getting Ryan out of jail again. Actually, I take that back. It wasn't Sandy this time. It was Kirsten getting him out of jail, juvenile hall this time. Not jail, juvenile hall. We're still talking 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds. So, somewhere in there. They don't really ever identify their age, but I guess first season, sophomore year. Second season's junior, third year. So 16, 17, 18. We'll just operate off that premise. But anyways, Kirsten sees him getting into a whole bunch of trouble at juvenile hall because of nothing he did. So she decides to bring him home, and then that's kind of where this discussion, Sandy finds out about the $100,000 loan because the feds come to see him about Jimmy Cooper's problems. So already starting off with some serious financial problems for the neighbors. The SEC is investigating. Jimmy Cooper's an investment banker. Again, I'll get to this, is kind of where this storyline hits its crescendo in episode 4, and then boils over into 5 and 6. But 4 is where it hits its head. But anyways, they get to have this discussion about, Ryan. They find his mom. Kirsten brings him home. They're working to find his mom, because that's kind of the early start to this is, we want to find him his home. Want to find him his home. And then, they invite Dawn over for casino night. She kicked out her abusive boyfriend that Ryan didn't like. She's going to AA meetings. She's clean. Oops. She gets on a little bit of a heater at a casino night, starts drinking, goes off the rails. It just becomes an embarrassing scene for Ryan. She disappears, leaving him there with her. And then at this point, Sandy and Kirsten have to decide what to do. Kirsten's pushing to have him go through DFS again. He's got a family. It's not our place, et cetera, et cetera. Then comes up the she brings up the Sandy brings up the loan that she made without consulting him, and is like, look, we can't keep yo-yoing this kid around. We need to make him a more permanent part of our family. He needs a stable place. So they decide to let him stay. Episode 4, of course, we're talking high society people. So of course they have to have a cotillion ball. Can't have high society without one, apparently, particularly in TV. I mean, I don't know if these things are real or not. If anybody knows if there's actually some place where cotillion balls exist, tweet at me. I'd love to know. I'd love to see pictures. I'd love to hear some experiences about this, because I can't imagine these things are actually real, or at least as obnoxiously real as they make them seem in real life. Also in this episode, we're kind of introduced to Anna Stern from Pittsburgh, who will play kind of an important piece in a Seth storyline going forward. And she actually kind of notices that Seth likes Summer Roberts, but doesn't seem to have the confidence to talk to her, ask her out, or have a backbone when it comes to her. And then, of course, again, we get the Luke, Marissa, Ryan triangle thing going on. I hate to call these things love triangles, because there's not. I mean, they're designed by the writers to be that way, but they're not really, given that we're talking high school kids, and yeah. Don't want to get into all of that, but again, we'll call them love triangles for the sake of the purpose of the story. So, Luke's getting really frustrated. He gets real mad at Marissa. Marissa doesn't want to go to Cotillion. Ryan doesn't want to go because he's afraid he'll cause a scene between Marissa and Luke, because there's this ongoing bad blood. And it'll be funny towards the end of the season when we get to some other storylines that kind of change this bad blood. We'll call that a little foreshadowing, which I've done a ton of already. And then, like I said, I'll try and put a bow on this first season altogether at the end, because it's kind of a weird season, because they did a 7 or 8 episode run, and then they had to pause for the playoffs. So they kind of did the first run as the summer before school started, and then kind of the second part of the first season, which is like 27, 28 episodes, which is abnormal for a TV show in this day and age. 22, 23 is the normal. For hour-long shows like this, a lot of times 12 or 13 even became normal. So it was a little different in that aspect as well. But, the second half of the first season, or I wouldn't call it half, but obviously the second part was obviously just the first year of school. But anyways, so Sandy doesn't want to go to Cotillion because he's now gotten deeper and deeper into this Jimmy Cooper stuff, and he knows that a lot of the people are starting to realize that Jimmy Cooper has stolen their money. He's committed securities fraud, and that's why they made the loan. And now he's, kind of trapped between trying to help Jimmy Cooper out, trying to help his wife out, and trying to do the right thing, because you'll find Sandy Cohen is kind of this do-gooder character throughout the show. He always wants to do what's right, always trying to do what's best, but he always works to protect his family first and his friends. And so he kind of ends up in this odd position with Jimmy Cooper, where he knows he's stealing, and he sees Jimmy Cooper being treated like the golden boy, when he knows really he's just as scummy and bad as everybody else. And of course, in the same episode of the Cotillion, you kind of get to see how Julie Cooper, Jimmy Cooper's wife, plays a huge role in the money problems by needing money for the horse, for the second daughter's horse. I can't think of her name right now. So that'll escape me for now, because she doesn't play a big role in the first season. Then she goes off to boarding school for a few years, and then she's kind of back towards this season 3 and season 4. But again, we'll just say, need money for her horse, they need money for this, that. You could see where just when the market was bad, where we're talking 2003, stock market wasn't great then. We were just starting a second war at that point in Iraq, and the economy was a little slow. So that was actually a little true to life. But kind of at the end of the episode, then Marissa and Ryan decide to go to Cotillion. Sandy goes to take them. Then one of the girls' daughter, Holly, who her dad realizes that Jimmy has lost all his money and stolen it, gets into a fight with him at the Cotillion, which kind of just brings to a screeching halt this big event. So I feel like I'm flying through some high points in this episode. But Ryan ends up being Marissa's escort at the cotillion. Summer Roberts has no escort because she bails on Seth, who was supposed to be her white knight. They weren't, paired up as a couple, but he was supposed to be her white knight. But then Anna who was supposed to be escorted by Ryan, but Ryan bailed, so she was being escorted by Seth. Well, that's when Seth and Anna start becoming fast friends, and they start talking about Summer, and then Anna tells Seth, you got to have confidence. You have to be willing to say no. So that's why Seth leaves Summer hanging for the cotillion and stays as Anna's escort for her coming out. But basically that's episode 5. Episode 4. We're going to fly into episode 5, where Ryan gets a job at the local Crab Shack. I don't know what it's actually called, but I'm going to steal Crab Shack from My Name is Earl, because I can't remember the name of this stupid restaurant. And he meets a guy, Donnie, who works there, who happens to be from like one town over from where he grew up in Corona. Well, Ryan and Donnie are hanging out. Seth gets jealous. He wants to hang out with Donnie. Well, then Ryan starts hanging out with Marissa some, and then Seth is trying to hang out with Donnie. Gets the Range Rover trashed one time. Their parents' Range Rovers trashed one time. They go out. Another time he takes Donnie up to party at Holly's beach house, where somehow Donnie has a gun. Ryan tries to wrestle it away from him. So it hits the ground. It shoots Luke in the shoulder. That's kind of episode 5. In episode 5, we also have, again, some of this adult focusing where Julie Cooper tells Jimmy Cooper that she wants a divorce. She can't believe that he would, lie to her and steal and violate her trust. And plus, if they stay married, he has to file bankruptcy and they have to sell the house so he can pay back his clients and stay out of jail. Sandy negotiated a plea deal for him. Well, she can't handle the concept of losing her status, because she's from Riverside, California, trailer trash, essentially, that made it good. So she doesn't want to give that up. And then we skip into, so that's kind of episode 5. Episode 6, Caleb, which is Nickel, which is Kirsten Cohen's dad. We make his acquaintance with his 24-year-old girlfriend, Gabriella. So now in this kind of ongoing love triangle, Marissa and Luke are taking a break. She's not able to, she's kind of in this in-between between Luke and Ryan, not sure who I want to be with. And then she was coming over to tell Luke that, or tell Ryan that she was going to choose him, but Ryan was making out with Gabrielle in the pool house where he stays. There's apparently, that's right, there was a party for Caleb for some shit or another. He was a terrible human being in the show, and yet they're always throwing parties to honor him for this, that, or the other. And Summer was there, had a bunch of fancy bankers she wanted to meet, and then she, some reason, kisses Seth, kind of like a pity kiss, but she starts to think she might have feelings for him. But that's kind of where that episode leaves us. But then she goes back to introducing herself to the bankers. So that kind of was episode 6. Episode 7 is when they're supposed to be going to Tijuana, and of course everybody's not going to go at first. Seth usually goes to Comic-Con that time of year, which he uses as an excuse to go to Comic-Con, or to Tijuana, and he ends up driving down Summer, and Marissa and Ryan tags along to be the constant guardian. And while they're, on the way down, the car breaks down. They have to stay in this ratty-ass hotel. Then before they get to Tijuana, Jimmy calls Marissa and says, hey, look, we're getting divorced, and me and your mom are getting divorced, and I'm moving out. I'll be gone when you get back. Then you have, so they then pause, go to the adult side of things. Sandy Cohen, who's worked at the public defender's office in Orange County, California for 15 years, is now being wooed by a major law firm. And he's actually considering taking the job, which makes Kirsten upset. And he, of course, accuses her of being upset because she likes making the money and being able to hold it over him. And he does, his do-gooder offsets her, the fact that she works for her shiftless dad, and comes into a big fight again. More of this focus on adults. And he does end up taking the job. In the meantime, while she's doing that, she's also helping Jimmy move into his new apartment, helping him paint. While Kirsten, who's Sandy's husband, is helping Jimmy move in, her ex-boyfriend who went to prom with, and painting. He ends up kissing her while she's in there, and then doesn't tell Sandy. Well, now cut back to the kids. They get to Tijuana. They go to one of the bars. Marissa, who is a bit of a drinker. If you watch these early episodes, one of the first ones, her friends dump her, just pass out in her front yard, and Ryan has to help her in. In this episode, they're all out drinking. She sees Luke making out with Holly and dancing on her, and then Holly's just basically like, it does it with everybody. Everybody knows, blah, blah, blah. So she gets mad, goes back to the hotel, apparently, that the kids were all staying at, gets the pain pills that Summer had picked up for her stepmom, and mixes it with some alcohol, ends up blacked out in a suicide attempt in an alley in Tijuana. Ryan rescues her. End of episode. Or Ryan finds her. End of episode. Next episode, of course, she's in the hospital. Julie doesn't want Marissa to see Ryan anymore because, of course, it's Ryan's fault, not Luke's fault that she committed suicide. Everything was great until Ryan showed up. Everything was great. She tries to make him stay away. Sandy starts his new job and spends a lot of time with Rachel, his new coworker, who's younger and attractive. And Kirsten is upset by this, all the while holding in her secret about making out with Jimmy Cooper. Ryan is supposed to be taking his placement test to try and get into Harbor because, of course, they have some serious concerns about his history. His parents are complaining because he's, a kid from Chino. Well, in the meantime, Julie goes behind Jimmy's back and it doesn't tell anybody, but gets her committed to a inpatient therapy down in San Diego, California. Well, Summer finds Seth, who then goes and gets Ryan out of his very important placement test to get him to break Marissa out of jail. Or out of jail. Yeah, they broke him out of jail. But anyways, they broke her out of the hospital so her parents couldn't commit her anymore. And again, this is the first episode back from the break. And they from the extended break for September and August, basically, for Fox baseball playoff coverage. Not that they'll ever admit that. But anyways, so they break her out, get her to her stepdad's. A big blow up scene between Ryan and Julie Cooper, which will be a continuing theme for at least the whole first season, and get to agree to let her stay with her dad and do outpatient therapy. Then he goes and takes his placement test and scores really high and gets into Harbor. But of course he gets in and he doesn't feel like he belongs. And of course Luke keeps still kind of this ongoing Luke, Ryan, and Marissa love triangle. Although Luke is obviously out of the picture, more so because of the cheating on Marissa, and of course Ryan hasn't actually gone out with things, but they keep getting into squabbles. And I think this is the episode where he tries out for the soccer team, and then gets in trouble for playing rough because he sees Luke trying to apologize to Marissa and takes it all out of character because Marissa lied to him about it. Yada yada yada. Typical teenage drama. Summer and Seth are kind of starting to hang out a lot, but she doesn't want to tell anybody. But Anna Stern returns now and is also really good friends with Seth. And of course, Summer's a little bit jealous of Anna because Anna likes comic books and Anna's smarter, and she's just everything that she thinks Seth would like. And that kind of starts that love triangle set up there. And of course, at his new job, first real case Sandy gets is for the Balboa Heights Land Trust against, of course, Caleb Nickel, his father-in-law, who wants to develop property there. And then that'll roll over into the next episode where, again, Kirsten is still really worried about all this time that Sandy's spending with Rachel working on this case, that they seem to be almost dating because Rachel's single. And you'll see throughout the first episode that this first season is there's a lot of strain in the Sandy and Kirsten relationship, and that kind of continues through. It's really kind of interesting how they focus on that. And then there'll also be some things that kind of tie up into season 2 that they really lay the groundwork for in season 1 really magically. So if you get a chance to ever watch this, pay attention to small details throughout this episodes, because you never know what's going to be important come 10 or 15, 20 episodes later. But anyways, so, Ryan then sees Caleb and Julie making out and tells Marissa because he doesn't want her to find out. So they're doing, so she finds out there's some special love cruise giveaway, where at the end of this thing, and again, another fundraiser thing, there's always these fancy parties or fancy fundraisers almost all the time, which again, I can't see there being that much thing. So in something like this, a season that takes half a year, there's probably a 10, 14 party. Like that seems a little over the top for me. If there's anybody who grew up affluent and can say otherwise, again, would love to hear about it. Would love to see some pictures and say, hey, yeah, no, we really do ridiculous things like this every other week or every third week just to make ourselves feel better. I don't know. I didn't have that experience growing up. But anyways, so during that episode, while they're on the boat and it's supposed to be going, guess what? Sandy and Kirsten win the romantic getaway for 2. But of course, Sandy is getting there after it's already happened, where Kirsten spent the whole episode and the whole party by herself because he was too busy working, too busy spending time with Rachel. Marissa gets angry and, outs the Julie and Caleb relationship, because during this episode, of course, Julie is teasing both Jimmy and Marissa about the potential of getting back together and making the family whole, while the whole time she's just dating Caleb, trying to get his money. You'll see that definitely through the first couple of seasons, and basically through the whole show, Julie Cooper is portrayed as a gold digger, and it's not necessarily a bad portrayal. And then towards the end of the episode, Summer was at this thing with somebody else. Seth was there with Anna. But of course his friends, because him and Anna are friends at this point, but Anna likes him as more than friends, and that'll come into play here in another episode or 2. And Summer kisses him, has this revelation that she likes Seth Cohen, and she tells him if he tells anybody, she'll kill him. So that kind of ties in the next episode. We go Thanksgiving episode at this point now. Ryan gets a call from his brother Trey in prison, because his brother was a multi-time offender, has several years in prison, that he needs to visit him on Thanksgiving. Ryan's like, not a big deal, I can understand. Ryan goes to visit his brother, and Marissa stows away, says, oh yeah, my mom knows. Mom didn't know. But anyways, his brother Trey needs him to steal a car to pay off a debt. This is where we first meet Vanessa and Eddie, who will again become more important characters later on. But these are the childhood friends of Ryan and his brother, where they grew up down the street from him. Yada yada yada. They help Ryan get this car back to the chop shop, and Marissa follows him in the Range Rover, even though he didn't know she followed him. He told her to go home when she found out she lied to him, and that Julie didn't know she was with him. But again, during this episode, now Seth and Anna has kicked up, and so Seth and Anna are now hanging out. Well, then Summer stops by surprise. So he's got Anna in the pool house, Summer in his bedroom. He keeps trying to bounce back and forth. And of course, that blows up in his face when they both find out he's there. His dad has to talk to him about being fair to the girls and choosing one. Of course, during this episode, Kirsten and Seth try to set up Jimmy with Rachel, and they kind of bond over a love of ESPN classics. And Julie and Caleb's caterer doesn't show up, gets into an accident, something, so they have to crash Thanksgiving. It just makes for a giant shit show. But again, just kind of this focus on adults where you see, trying to set up Jimmy with one of Sandy's coworkers. Again, the adult relationships really play into the show a lot, and they keep going. Then in the next episode, Ryan and Luke now, who still aren't getting along all that well, but are starting, they're not fighting anymore, to say the least, get put together as partners on a school project. While doing that, they go to Luke's dad's car dealership where they see his dad making out with another dude and flip out. It turns out, and then the secret gets around school after, Ryan told Marissa. Turns into a blow up between Ryan and Marissa, except it wasn't Marissa who let everybody know. Came out from the Noopsies. Again, watch it. I'm not going to explain Noopsies to you. They're basically the bored, lonely, rich housewives of Orange County. And of course, that actually becomes a bonding thing for him because Ryan goes over to Luke and is there for him and his brothers and his mom while his dad's moving out. And, it kind of becomes a turning point in their relationship. Now, mind you, this is 12 episodes in, and these guys have gone from trying to kill each other to now suddenly some of the best friends they've got. And, of course, this is another episode where both Anna and Summer are now both mad at Seth for stringing them along. And so he's trying to make up his mind. He's trying to get them to forgive him, but they won't forgive him. And we'll kind of leave that there. Ultimately, they're going to force him to choose. But he doesn't choose. They choose in a way. And Caleb and Julie break up during this episode. And Seth and Sandy decide to buy a restaurant. Because, Jimmy can't get no jobs He can't get no jobs. Man, is that about one of the worst sentences I've ever put together. I love that phrase, can't get no, but no. Jimmy couldn't find a job in Orange County, California, was going to have to move away. Sandy hates his job, even though he's making a ton of money, so he decides to invest in a restaurant and make Jimmy the manager during this episode after they drank a bunch, which leads us into the Chrismukkah episode. Chrismukkah would be the combination of Christmas and Hanukkah because Seth is half Christian, half Jewish, so this is his way to bridge those two holidays into one. It's also during this episode that after many, many back and forths on the Balboa land deal where they agreed to pay a ridiculous sum to buy the land from from Caleb. I can't remember the name of the company. I just really can't at this point. You think I would. I've watched it enough. And it'll come to me at some point later. That he finds out that, oops, the land's built on a fault line and not suitable for building, so he holds that against him during some other party they're having for something and makes him seem like this really great guy because he sells it to the Balboa Land Trust for $1, and he makes him, basically sticks on that. Now, this is the first episode where Marissa's finally forced to go to therapy, and she meets this guy, Oliver. Oliver will become important later on, but that's basically how this episode ends, is with her meeting Oliver. And this is when Anna and Summer are really kind of to the point of forcing Seth to choose between the two of them. Anna makes Seth a comic book. Summer dresses up as Wonder Woman. And, of course, Seth tries to give them both the exact, honest, same gift set, except both refuse it because he won't make a decision, so they both decide to leave him alone. So now, Haley, Kirsten's sister, pops up in the next episode. We're now to episode 14, and we've got another new character who, and for those of you who don't know, Haley is a vagabond who just kind of disappears for years at a time after she comes home, stays for a little bit, gets more daddy's money, and then disappears. But she comes home, throws a wild New Year's Eve rager, while Marissa and Anna and Summer are at a New Year's Eve party at Oliver's penthouse at the Four Seasons because his parents own the hotels. Again, these rich kids and their first world problems really don't know how to deal with it. But when we get to the end of the episode, Ryan has to turn the power off and threaten to call the cops to get everybody out of the house because there's somebody there looking for Haley because she owes them money. She does that. Well, then all of a sudden, Ryan decides to go kiss Marissa before midnight, so he runs to the penthouse and gets there just before midnight, kisses her. In the meantime, Anna kind of pushes Summer on some guy at the party, and she bails out and goes to the Cohen residence and makes out with Seth at midnight. And Summer, after she finishes making out with some rando dude, says, "You're not Seth Cohen." But at this point, then, I think we can roll into episode 15, where now Seth and Anna are dating. Haley has worn out her welcome has worn out her welcome because she's just sitting there, not working, not doing anything, just, kind of being a pain in the butt by eating all their food, kind of lounging around the house. But, so as Seth and Anna are starting to date, they don't know how to tell Summer. So she's kind of third wheeling, but doesn't realize she's third wheeling, then does realize she's third wheeling. And they all get invited by Oliver to a Rooney concert. I can't remember what brought that on, but anyways, while they're there, at first they go to the front door and nobody's ever heard of Oliver Trask. Then they go, as they're getting ready to leave, he doesn't answer their phone calls. Then they go to the back. He's like, "I swear I told you guys the back." "No, you never told us the back." But anyways, that gets them in. Then he disappears because Ryan and Marissa are hanging out and having a good time. And of course, his fictional girlfriend, Natalie, has broken up with him again. But he goes out and tries to buy cocaine and gets arrested by an undercover cop. Well, Ryan calls Sandy to help get him out of jail, and he refuses to tell Marissa what happened, but he makes Oliver tell her instead. So that's kind of where we're at there. And now we move into Oliver tries to invite Ryan and the gang down to play golf in Palm Springs, whatever it is in California. But of course, basically, he's trying to edge Ryan out the whole time and just spend time with Marissa. Seth and Anna are clearly starting to realize that Summer is jealous of their relationship, but they're kind of stuck with her at the same time because they promised to try and be friends, and it's just really awkward for everybody. So basically, Luke at this point is starting to get his antenna twitching about Oliver, like Ryan is, thinking he's trying to push Ryan out and trying to move in on his territory. Because again, now everybody's kind of forgiven and forgetting what happened early in the year, and now they're friends. Except now Oliver's here to kind of create a Oliver, Marissa, Ryan love triangle. While we still have the Ryan Summer or the Summer Seth Anna one going on. And then this episode kind of ends with Kirsten convincing her dad to cut off his sister, or her sister, so that way, she can't just keep spending all his money. Oliver now in the next episode transfers to Harbor, and Ryan tries breaking into his permit records to prove that this guy's dangerous to Marissa. In the meantime, he gets himself suspended for doing so. Then there's a fight with Oliver and Ryan that leads to Ryan getting suspended indefinitely. And then in this episode, Summer is starting to date some dude named Danny, who's just really obnoxious, but also makes Seth realize that he probably likes Summer more than Anna, and it leads to some very awkward scenes. Jimmy and Sandy officially signed the paperwork to buy the restaurant and start renovating the restaurant, and then Julie gets hired as an interior designer for the. It's really going to bother me so I can think of the name of their company, but I can't. By Caleb to work there to redesign their model home and it goes as a disaster, according to Julie, because she couldn't get everything she wanted. But it ended up being a less is more situation. Now Luke is keeping an eye on Oliver even more since Ryan's suspended. Marissa refuses to see what Luke and Luke and Ryan see that Oliver is dangerous and trying to date her. She refuses to see it. Oh no, he's just, getting over his girlfriend, Natalie. Seth has Anna and Summer over for dinner and basically ignores Anna while Summer is there. Sandy calls Seth out for this and says, look, it's not fair to that poor girl for you to be flirting with another girl in front of her. Like, I didn't raise you like that. You need to be better. If you're going to break up with her. It's okay. And then, Caleb has Kirsten break up with Julie for him. Again, kind of that focus on adults is very interesting to me. Again, the concept of this wealthy man being so afraid to break up with a girlfriend, because the whole juxtaposition is that he just never breaks up with anybody. He just doesn't talk to them ever again, is kind of his modus operandi. But since it's somebody who's kind of working for him, he's got to make it seem like they're going through it. And then this episode kind of ends in a very big crescendo with Marissa being held hostage by I really forgot this, that Oliver, when they left Palm Springs, Oliver went back to his hotel because he then had to leave and faked a suicide attempt to get Marissa to spend time with him. Can't believe I forgot that scene. But now we're getting to the end of this episode where Oliver is going to hold Marissa hostage with a gun. And Ryan comes over with security and Sandy because he listens to Sandy and doesn't have any more interactions with Oliver without him present, because he was basically threatened to throw him back in juvenile hall because he'd violate his probation. And lo and behold, he's there holding her hostage, and he gets him to put down the gun. Ryan gets Oliver to put down the gun and not kill himself. They get Marissa out, and suddenly, lo and behold, everything that Ryan was suspended for just disappears. Like, next episode, he goes back to school. He didn't break into the school and steal files from the file. I don't care if the kid did end up being a lunatic. Like, that stuff doesn't just disappear. But again, I guess the theory should be that he served as punishment, and now that Oliver's gone, there shouldn't be as much problems, because obviously he was right. Oliver was a lunatic. And of course, Marissa wants everything to go back to being normal. In the meantime, Ryan is in a very bad spot with Marissa because he just feels like she didn't trust him, so why should he trust her? And now Vanessa moves to Newport for a little bit for some catering jobs, and Ryan's spending time, or Teresa, not Vanessa. Vanessa's from Gossip Girl. Teresa was Ryan's neighbor in Chino, and she moves to town, his childhood girlfriend, I guess. And then in the meantime, Jimmy starts dating Haley, which is Kirsten's sister. Again, kind of these weird adult focuses where you have a lot of drama surrounding the adults, because he has to keep that a secret from Kirsten and Sandy, because kind of weird if he's dating his business partner and his ex-girlfriend's kid sister. And then in this same episode, Luke, Marissa's ex-boyfriend, who is a 16-year-old in high school, now starts sleeping with Julie Cooper, which is Marissa's mom. And Seth and Summer finally become a couple, and in this episode, that kind of hits the high points there. I really am closing in on an hour. I didn't really think this was going to take me this long to do, but I'm going to try. But in the next episode, Ryan finds out that Teresa's in Newport because Eddie has started hitting her when he gets stressed out from work. Summer refuses to be public with her relationship with Seth. And then Seth turns to Anna for support and understanding. Or no, I take that back. Summer goes to Anna because she can sense that Seth's not happy. Summer learns from Anna that she just needs to either be public with it or understand that it's not fair to Seth to be a private boyfriend per se. Anyways, I can't believe I got lost on that one there for a second. In this episode, by the end, at some school party, carnival, thing. I don't remember. Maybe the coffee cart. Seth gets up on and professes his love for Summer and tells her, oh, kissing booth. That's right, the kissing booth. She has $10 per thing to kiss other guys in public, and then he throws a hissy fit about her not being public, not wanting to be public with their displays. So he stand here and kiss me now or lose me forever. Big sweeping declaration. Caleb's one of his business partners, gets caught breaking into a hotel room of a competitor, and Sandy has to help straighten that out, because otherwise, of course, his wife Kirsten will be implicated because the business is dirty. This is an ongoing theme, and Caleb uses it well to manipulate Sandy. And Julie starts to suspect Luke and Julie are having a relationship because they start to be a little too obvious with it at times in public. And we move on to episode 21, where Anna decides to move back to Pittsburgh because she had a good visit with her aunt over spring break and realized how much she misses Pittsburgh, how much she misses just the old familiar things. More of the Caleb and his business associate thing where Sandy has to essentially obstruct justice, and the DA tells him if he finds out he obstructs justice, he's putting him in jail to make that legal problem go away so his wife doesn't get in trouble. Luke and Julie are now using secret hotels, but to have their torrid affair, and now Eddie comes to one of the parties and beats up Ryan and knocks him into the pool with Anna's goodbye letter to Seth in it. So Seth can't read it, and then it leads to him chasing her down in the airport, telling her not to go because it's, he doesn't have that many friends and he doesn't want to lose his only friend, blah, blah, blah. He feels responsible for her leaving because he thinks, the way he treated her played a part in that, and et cetera, et cetera. So Anna goes away, but she'll come back in a couple seasons. Don't worry. There's almost nobody who ever is in this show who doesn't come back at some. Again, that was an interesting. There was always this interesting moving pieces and moving parts where nobody was ever gone forever. I shouldn't say nobody was ever gone forever, but like people would come and then they'd go and they'd come and they'd go, and it was really interesting use of characters to not let them get so stale by being around forever. So anyways, skip ahead to the next episode where Marissa and Summer meet one of the dudes from The Valley, some fictional TV show. That's a huge hit, and they get invited down to the dude's birthday party in L.A., where Ryan and Seth tag along. Summer spends most of the episode hanging out with the dude from The Valley. Seth gets to take a selfie with Paris Hilton. She makes a makes a cameo. And lo and behold, guess what? Kirsten's sister Haley, so Aunt Haley to Seth and Ryan, is working as a stripper at the party they're at. Jimmy comes down to help rescue him, where Sandy and pause. So we're going to come back to Haley being a stripper. In the meantime, Jimmy and Sandy needed some business help. They had ran out of capital. They approached Caleb to be a third silent investor. Have some of the high influence people over to Sandy's house to taste test the menu, to write some glowing articles about the new restaurant. The cook does an amazing job. Then, Caleb wants to know where Jimmy disappears. Well, needless to say, the kids had obviously called Sandy, let him know that Haley was working at a stripper. Jimmy went down to meet up with the kids to bring her home. And then before the episode's all done, Ryan has to go pick up a watch with Seth from the hotel because now Teresa has disappeared on Ryan after Ryan and Teresa have a one-off love affair. And as he's going to pick up his watch from the hotel, he sees Luke and Julie and finds out about their affair and is working with Luke to keep it a secret. But he tells Luke, look, you need to end it, and you need to end it soon. That I'm trying to think of. Oh, and then that episode ends with one of those just most amazing finishes that the show just loved love the high point drama finish. So this one ends with Luke coming to see Ryan in the pool house. And he says, "Look, I'm done having sex with Julia Cooper." And Ryan, the whole time trying to tell him, "Don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything." Luke, dense water polo jock player, didn't get it and says it anyways. And lo and behold, Marissa walks out of the bathroom at this point and then disappears. Skip ahead to episode 23, where we get the one appearance in the entire season of Sandy's mother, the Nana, who's supposed to be this evil character, but comes in and is all lovey-dovey and has everybody confused. Marissa has now run away, absolutely mad that Julie has been having an affair with her ex-boyfriend, refuses to talk to anybody, won't answer any phone calls. But she runs away to Chino, which is basically the one place where Ryan can find her. Where Ryan is the only person who can find her, because he goes to Teresa and Eddie's house. Summer works real hard to study the Torah for the big dinner. I'm terrible with Jewish holidays. I won't pretend to care. Jimmy and Haley are now a little more public with their romance, but not completely. I think this is the episode where it gets outed, though, where they find out. And anyways, so Ryan goes down to Chino to retrieve Marissa. It just happens to be the date of Eddie and Teresa's engagement party, because Eddie and Teresa had reconciled after Teresa realized that Ryan needed to be in Newport, didn't need to come back to Chino to be her boyfriend / protector / everything. So I take that back. There earlier wasn't the domestic violence issues. The domestic violence issues with Teresa will come sooner. Come here in another episode or two. But anyways, at first Eddie's really bad, and then he's like, you know what? Started to think about it. I'm really sorry. Glad you stayed. Because, with your brother Trey and my brother Arturo in jail, it's really down to just me and you from the old gang. I thought you were here for Teresa. It turns out you were here for Marissa. I was just really angry, but I'm glad you're here. I should have invited you. So then we skip ahead to the next episode because Marissa's now home. Luke keeps trying to apologize. But then after Luke gets drunk at a party and drives and gets into a near-fatal accident, she listens to his apology. And then there's two other big things happen in this one. The restaurant is blocked from getting a liquor license because the guy on the liquor board was one of the people that Jimmy ripped off. And Caleb's supposed to help, but is of no help. Put a pin in that. That'll be important in another episode or two. And then the episode ends with Caleb proposing to Julie and her accepting. So now they're going to skip ahead to the next episode, which is the bachelor party and a wedding shower. Teresa also calls Sandy to let her know that Eddie has hit her, and then he is able to discover it's not the first time. Tries not to tell Ryan, but Ryan finds out anyways. And of course, Ryan's initial thought is to run and beat up Eddie, and then luckily Sandy is able to get through to Ryan, and he instead has Teresa come stay with them for a little bit while they figure all of that out. Haley and Jimmy are still dating secretly. Okay, so this is the episode where it comes out. And then Seth and Summer... Okay, so this is just the wedding shower with the crazy aunt, not the thing. But Summer has Seth meet her dad, Seth being Seth. Seth's all over it and is just nerdy and geeky and awkward, and it goes really bad. And of course, Summer then starts to think she needs to rethink the entire relationship because that... her and her dad have such an amazing relationship that if it doesn't, that if he doesn't approve of who she's dating, then it's really not meant, really shouldn't be. Down to 2 episodes to go here. We're to episode 26. We're at an hour 3. Way longer than I thought this was going to take. But if you really listened through this and enjoyed, I applaud every minute of it. You listening to me kind of give you a recap of every episode where I ramble and ramble. Anyways, the boys go to the Vegas for the bachelor party, they think. But it turns out that actually what's going on is that Sandy learned that Caleb is trying to sell the restaurant after... back up again. So once they can't get the liquor license, Caleb buys the restaurant for about double what Jimmy and Sandy put into it. So they both walk off with a nice payday, but turns out that there was another land developer looking to redevelop that whole strip of oceanfront, but the only piece of property he didn't have was the lighthouse. Well, we find out that then Caleb's going to turn around and sell that for about 10 times what he paid those guys for it, and his partners for the restaurant. And of course, Sandy now breaks into the secret meeting and threatens to sue Caleb for this. And then Caleb's like, well, I had to do this because the commercial real estate development aspect of my company is bankrupting us. That the only profitable part is the residential development that your wife runs. And that's kind of the adult side of things on that. Then we can go back to the kids tagging along to the bachelor party in Vegas. So they're trying to make some money for Teresa to get a trip to Atlanta so she can get away from Eddie, who's abusing her, because she's going to go stay with an aunt there. So they play in a secret poker game. They win a bunch of money early, except the girl that Seth has been hanging out with and making out with turns out to be a prostitute who they invited her and all her friends up to the penthouse suite that they were staying in. And of course, now they have to go back and play poker to pay off the debt. And of course, Ryan loses a bunch of money first to the same people he just took for a bunch of money, borrows money from the hooker to win enough to pay them off. And then before the episode ends, Marissa and Teresa go out for a girls' night, who had been rivals before because of the Ryan love triangle involving them three. Well, needless to say, she can't drink, she can't eat sushi. Turns out Teresa confides in Marissa that she might be pregnant. And then this leads us to the last episode, where it's supposed to be Caleb and Julie's wedding day. Part of the deal that Caleb had cut with Jimmy for buying the restaurant at such an exorbitant price was that Marissa would move in with Caleb and Julie because Julie wanted her back in the house. Teresa is scheduled to go get an abortion, and Kirsten goes with her because she admits that she had an abortion at one point and that it was a very tough decision and didn't want her to go with that. Wedding actually goes off without a hitch. But again, that's just kind of going to highlight the adult focus of things. And then Ryan, at the end of the episode, Ryan decides to move back to Chino with Teresa to help her raise the kid, even though he's not sure it's his. Might be his, might be Eddie's. They don't know. But he's just going to, again, at 16, run off with her and help her raise the kid. And Seth decides to run away from home and sails off to Seattle. I'll leave that, put a pin in that, because that will be when I start my season 2 review. But anyway, so I'm going to kind of back up because I kind of went episode by episode, and now I want to just follow some of the character arcs. So you have Ryan, who's this absolute car thief, gets into fights with the water polo team in his first episodes. Second episode starts a house fire. Gets involved in a. I'm drawing a blank. I'm really, really hitting some misses here. So, anyways, Ryan is the brother of a car thief who was there, so he kind of has this negative connotation coming in. Second episode, he catches a house, model home on fire. Then his mom, the drunk, shows up, ends up abandoned, kind of ends up being this outsider who then, hangs out with a guy who gets the captain of the water polo team shot. And then by like 6 episodes later, him and the captain of the water polo team, after all these fights and all this infighting over Marissa because of their love triangle, now end up being like BFFs because he finds out about his dad being gay and is there for the captain of the water polo team. Then ends up dating Marissa. Then Marissa ends meeting this crazy dude Oliver. Well, while that's going on, then Ryan's breaking into the school to steal school records, getting into fights with Oliver, and just absolutely goes off the deep end again. Then, lo and behold, Oliver is really the crazy one after he has everybody thinking Ryan's the crazy one, because it turns out he made up a fake girlfriend and kidnaps Marissa at gunpoint, except he says he's not holding her hostage with that. He says, no, the gun's for him. If she leaves, he'll kill himself. So it turns out Ryan was right and saves her. But then right after that, he hooks up with his ex-girlfriend from Chino, who then ends up pregnant, but it might be Eddie's. But then there's this love triangle between him and Eddie and Teresa. And then Teresa goes back and then to Chino. Then Eddie hits her. Then she comes back to Newport. And again, this is all within one school year. This is in one season of the show. Then Ryan goes back to Chino at the end of the first season with Teresa to help raise the kid with her. Meantime, now you have Seth, the sidekick, who is outside loner. Nobody will talk to him. First couple episodes. Then he meets Anna when we go to the cotillion. He's been talking to Summer a little bit, but Summer's just basically been pushing him off because he's this nerdy, geeky kid. Well, now, Anna helps him with Summer, but then Anna ends up interested in him. They end up dating. Well, he ends up kind of dating both at the same time. Then he ends up dating Anna after he chooses Anna, or Anna chooses him more appropriately. Then he goes back and starts flirting with Summer, breaks up with Anna. Anna moves away, and he's with Summer. And that actually stays pretty strong all the way through the end of the first season. They just kind of stuck with the Ryan, Marissa, Teresa love triangle. Then you have the whole Jimmy Cooper character arc where he's the rich golden boy investment banker of Orange County. Turns out that he's he's embezzling from all his clients, and they're all broke. And he's facing SEC charges, but Sandy cuts him an amazing plea deal where he repays the $4 million he's stolen and ends up on probation and loses his license. Kind of bums around for a little bit, then can't find a job, is going to move to Phoenix, but Sandy, in the meantime, changed jobs from public defender to corporate lawyer that he absolutely hates. And so he decides to invest in a restaurant with Jimmy. In the meantime, while they're remodeling the restaurant, they run out of money, bring Caleb in as a partner. Then Caleb buys them out when they can't get a liquor license, which is suspicious because Caleb's the most influential man in Newport. Oh, wait, he didn't get them the liquor license because he really wanted the property for himself so he could sell it for an even bigger profit to another developer who owned the rest of the property. And lo and behold, voila, that's the character arc. And like I said, you just have the Jimmy Julie Cooper, the Julie Cooper Caleb, Julie Cooper Luke, Julie Cooper Caleb get married again. You have, a Jimmy Cooper then dating Rachel once or twice. Then he dates Kirsten, his ex-girlfriend's baby sister. You have, relationships between Sandy Cohen and Kirsten Cohen at points in time of his first relationship. I mean, that first season goes really hard. Plus, again, this is ignoring Luke's gay dad storyline in there in like 2003, 2004. Like, this first season went hard in the paint. We had alcoholic mothers, infidelity everywhere. We had love triangles abound. We had love of probably octagons by the time if you really draw the diagrams out, because it was so just absolutely twisted and weird. So, I'm gonna finish this first episode of the Don't Worry Nobody's Listening podcast that I just spent talking basically a whole hour about the OC, a television show that's 15 years old, 14 years old, and nobody watched back then. And I'm sure people my age now really don't listen to podcasts looking to hear a summary of a 14-year-old television show. But there it is. That's what I'm going to talk about, episode 1. How hard in the paint season 1 of OC went. So again, my name's Jason Benicki Critchlow. You can find me on Twitter at JASONBANICKI. Subscribe to the podcast, rate, review. We'll be on iTunes. It'll be on Podbean. It'll be on my Facebook page, which I'm not giving out. It'll be on my Twitter feed, though. You can follow me there. Like I said, I'll create a Facebook page for the podcast here very shortly and publish that. It'll be Don't Worry Nobody's Listening podcast on Facebook. But share it out with people. But again, if you don't, I'm not going to be upset because at the end of the day, don't worry. Nobody's listening.